That Sports Podcast. Again, that's not the intro. I was just trying something. I don't like it. Not doing it again. Anyway, new episode of That Sports Podcast. What's going on, folks? Hope you are as excited to be here as I am right now. So, my big story, the big thing I want to talk about is Francis Ngannou signing with the PFL. 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 So he signs with the PFL, right? Now he's got ownership in the PFL. He's got a little stake in the PFL and stuff like that. You know, he's making money. He's guaranteed X, Y, and Z amount of fights. And to top it off, he also gets to do his little boxing thing as well. So, you know, big ups to him for securing that money, you know. Big ups to him for getting the bag. But here's my problem with this. The PFL is an up-and-coming promotion, right? And if we looked at this by the numbers, the PFL is still trying to compete with other already established fight organizations. You have Bellator, you have MMA. You have Bellator, MMA. You have Bellator, you have UFC. You have all the different boxing. You have all the different kickboxing and all of that stuff. So there's a lot of different established fight stuff going on. So the PFL is a relatively new thing. And here's what I've been saying for the last few years about the PFL when all of these people have signed, these ex-UFC fighters and stuff like that, these people who were released from the UFC. Here's what I said. Yes, the PFL is going to give them big contracts. Why? Because the PFL needs them more than they need the PFL. Why does the PFL need them more than they need the PFL? Because there were already other fight leagues that these fighters who got bounced out of the UFC could have gone to. They could have gone to Bellator. They could have gone to fight in Thailand or China or wherever. They could have gone to do, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu competitions and stuff like that. It wasn't the end of their career. It was just the end of their stint in the UFC. So the PFL is offering these people big contracts. Why? Because the PFL needs star power. They need names. Because right now, the PFL has very little brand recognition. They don't have a big name roster. Right now, Kayla Harrison was the biggest name the PFL produced. It was the biggest name they had on their roster. Kayla Harrison, the biggest name they have on their roster, the most recognized name they have on the roster. Then Anthony Pettis goes over there, and a few other people go over there, and now, like I said, you have more of these ex-UFC fighters going over there to fight for the PFL. Why? Because the PFL is handing out money left and right because they need these people. They need star power so their brand will get more brand recognition. They want to increase their market share. But here's why this is bad for the UFC fighters. Because if this promotion goes the way that other promotions in similar promotions like the PFL go, I believe there was one called Affliction that was very similar, and they had similar setup where they tried to give the fighters, bigger cuts of the promotions and this, that, and the third. It wasn't a sustainable business model. It wasn't, which is why some of these fight things don't exist. Every fighter on a UFC roster or on a mixed martial on a fight roster cannot have equity in the company. Otherwise, the equity gets to a point where it's next to nothing. It's like right now, Francis Ngannou might own, let's say, 50% of the shares in PFL, okay? What happens when 3 other fighters want 50% of the shares in PFL, or they want shares in PFL. You see what I'm saying? The shares start to water down. There's a finite amount of shares to go around. So then when they start talking about, oh well, we want our share, we want our equity, we want our stake in the company then has to go out and figure out how they can issue more stake in the company. They have to go out and secure more funds so they can actually have the funds to pay out the shares, the assets on the shares and the equity that these fighters are getting. On top of these ridiculously large purses that they're getting. Essentially what I'm saying is that the PFL could hemorrhage cash on one aspect of the business. And that's keeping the fighters happy. What happens if PFL says, "Oh, we're gonna guarantee that we think that this pay-per-view fight is gonna this next card or pay-per-view fight, whatever, however the fuck they do their shit, this card is going to generate, 1 million pay-per-view buys," and then it only does 500,000 pay-per-view buys. For whatever reason, maybe the UFC had a fight the same weekend. Maybe there was a big boxing match the same weekend. Maybe there was a big sports event that same weekend. For whatever fucking reason. The event doesn't do well. What are they going to do? Where do they get the money to pay these guys these big purses? Now, I understand that I don't know all the nuance in the ins and the outs of business. But when you're talking about one guy collecting equity and having shares and all of that stuff in the company, and then on top of that, he's drawing a salary from the company, you're paying the person twice. You're paying this man twice. I personally don't see this working out for the PFL simply because they are going to be hemorrhaging cash, just trying to entice other fighters to come and trying to keep people like Francis Ngannou and these other big name fighters who want big name contracts and stuff like that to come over. And I know what the PFL is going to try and do. They're going to try and do co-promotions with boxing promotions and stuff like that to see what happens, to make more money. Because what their thought process is, oh, well, if we get Francis Ngannou out there, and in a boxing match, this will generate a lot of buzz. It'll generate a lot of money, right? We get him out there, we get him into the ring to fight Tyson Fury. It's a big draw. It's going to be big money. I'm not saying it's not going to be big money, but what happens if Tyson Fury knocks him out? What happens? What happens if he does another boxing match and he gets knocked out again? See, and here's the thing. People are like, oh, Francis Ngannou's a beast. He got hand speed and blah, blah, blah. Francis Ngannou is not a fucking boxer. And I understand that he might be able to box and throw hands and shit, but I'll tell you right now, boxing and mixed martial arts are two different disciplines. It's like you take a mixed martial artist and put him in a boxing ring. Sure, he can box and throw hands, but is he going to outbox an actual boxer? No, I don't believe it. Not even a little bit. Not even a little bit. An elite level boxer? No, not even a little bit. So no, I do not. Like I said, I do not think Francis Ngannou goes out and knocks out Tyson Fury. I don't think he knocks out Anthony Joshua. I don't think he knocks out Tyson Fury. I'm not saying it won't happen. I'm just saying I don't see it. I don't see that his foray into boxing is going to be as lucrative as they think. His first loss, that's already going to take a hit in sales. His second loss, he loses again. That's going to be another hit in sales. But conversely, let's say that they don't get guys like top level talent like Anthony Joshua or Tyson Fury or Deontay Wilder, and they get him fucking soup cans. People aren't stupid. They know that they're putting tomato cans in front of this guy. All I'm saying is at the end of the day, I don't think this was a good business move for Francis Ngannou. Especially with the fact that he's investing, he wants equity, and now his horse is hitched with the company, because if the company goes down, Francis Ngannou goes down with it. And that's my take on it. Like I said, big ups to him for doing what he needed to do to get the money he thinks he needed and wanted and stuff like that. And he got what he wanted out of the deal. But like I said, when shit goes wrong, he gonna be looking mighty dumb in the face. Ja Morant flashes a gun on Instagram again. And quite frankly, look. He's showing y'all who exactly he is. The first time I would have bought, it was a lapse in judgment. The second time, the nigga don't give a fuck. He don't. He does not give a flying fuck. That's why he keeps doing it. He literally came out and after the first, and this not me, I don't promote violence, blah, 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 blah. And then came out and did the same shit. Did it a fucking again. He is showing you who he is. And I would not be surprised that if he finds himself out of the league soon. He keeps this shit up. I would not be surprised if he gets cut and then blackballed and then quote unquote blackballed out of the NBA. This is not a good look. I don't understand it. I don't understand it. Why do you need to get on your social media and flash your fucking gun? Why do you need to hold the... Like, what are you trying to prove and who are you trying to fucking prove it to? You are an NBA player. You play professional basketball. You make millions of fucking dollars. Who are you trying to intimidate with that little ass gun? Who are you trying to show off for with that tiny ass gun? Fucking stop. You are literally about to piss away millions of dollars all because you have some desire to prove that you're a fucking thug? Stop. Bro, if you need that kind of intensity around you, hire somebody to keep that sort of intensity around you and tell that motherfucker, go. But stop being fucking dumb. It makes no sense. You are risking your pro career making millions of dollars for fucking what? The team has rules around this shit. The NBA has rules around this shit. They tell you about this shit. It's not like fucking Ja Morant didn't know. And if he didn't know, he's a fucking idiot for not looking into it. All right, I'm done with that topic. Ja Morant is a phenomenal talent, but it just pisses me off that stupid people like his ass fuck it all up. All trying to be keeping up with the motherfuckers from around the way that used to trying to remember. You know what I mean? Like, for what? For what? You not about that life. Play basketball. So the Lakers and the Celtics are one game away from being eliminated from the playoffs. Now, I don't know if they've been eliminated from the playoffs. I'm not keeping up with that. I don't keep up with the Lakers like that. I don't know the playoff schedule. But I know they're getting close to elimination if they're not eliminated yet, right? And I was scrolling through Facebook and I saw this post that said the NBA conspired to get the Lakers into the playoffs. And then they used the evidence that they were using to back their claim was all the phantom calls that the Lakers got. And then they showed a statistic that since the All-Star break, the Lakers are plus 400 and it's over 450 in free throws. And the next nearest team to them is 191 free throws or something like that. And then they're showing clips of all these phantom foul calls and stuff like that. They said Austin Reeves got 18 free throws in a game. He's a bench player. They even had a coach saying, well, we're doing the same things and he's getting all these fouls. They're getting all these fouls and we're not getting a single call. So then I thought about it and I was like, this is compelling. This is a compelling argument, right? Because it's not outside the realm of possibility. How else do you explain some of these erroneous phantom calls? I mean, if we're talking, like, since the All-Star break, the Lakers have gotten a lot of them. 400, they're plus 450 in free throws. How are they the most free throwingest team in the NBA? So then I thought about it and I was like, did the NBA conspire to get the Lakers into the playoffs? No. They didn't conspire to get the Lakers into the playoffs. If the NBA did conspire to get the Lakers into the playoffs, it's because they needed LeBron James in the playoffs. See, if I'm going to believe that the NBA conspired to do anything, I'm going to believe that they conspire to get their moneymaker or the person who's supposed to be the savior of the NBA, the greatest fucking basketball player in the history of the NBA. Oh my God, LeBron James! Yeah, that fucking asshole. Like I said, I believe it's more likely that they fixed it so that LeBron James would be in the playoffs this season. They didn't give a shit whether he won. They just wanted the Lakers to be in the playoffs because LeBron James puts butts in the seats. And it's not, and we can say what we want. As much as I can't stand LeBron, I can't stand the man. I can't stand LeBron and the. I can't stand LeBron. That's all I can say. I can't stand him. I can't stand his legacy. I can't stand. There's nothing to me. He's a great basketball player because he's fucking tall and big, and that's it. He has the perfect combination of physical gift with the right amount of mental fortitude to stick with the sport and be good at it and shit like that. So that's the only thing I give him credit for. Everything else outside of that, he just coattailing, riding, copying and pasting, doing everything else that everybody else before him did. So as much as I can't stand him, I will acknowledge that he puts butts in the seats. Either fans or haters. Either people who want to see him succeed or people who enjoy seeing him fail. People have eyes on him. And in the last few seasons, I would even go so far as to say the playoffs probably dipped in ratings. So what was the NBA solution? We need to get our golden boy back into the playoffs. So let's cook this shit up. Now, not saying that is 100% the case. I'm just saying that if we are to believe that the NBA conspired to get the Lakers into the playoffs, it's because LeBron James was on the team and not because they actually give a fuck about the Lakers. See, LeBron James being in the playoffs is good for business. Giannis being in the playoffs is good for business. These high profile superstars and athletes, it is great business for them to be in the playoffs. It's not good business for them to go home and then the playoffs suffer because LeBron James, Giannis, Anthony Davis, and all these guys, they're on the sideline. They're on the sideline watching from home. It's not good business. So if we are going to say that the NBA conspires, I'm going to say they conspire for the superstar athletes to win, not necessarily a team, because they don't necessarily give a fuck about which team wins. They just want to generate the most revenue. All right. So, I saw this article about Giannis and being asked whether or not this season was a failure. And he was a little irate about it. And I mean, I could see, because he just lost and everything like that. He's a competitor. He got that competitive edge, that mindset, like he wants to win and stuff like that. But he came out and said, Michael Jordan played for 15 seasons. He won 6 championships. Was the other 9 seasons a failure? Then he goes on to actually say that in sports, you have some successes, but then sometimes things don't go your way. And the reason I mention this is because it's fucking stupid to say that sometimes you have success, but there's absolutely never any failure in sports. There is failure in sports, people. The goal of sports is to win. Right? The goal of a sport is to win. No one's getting to the professional level and competing at their sport because it's just good fun. They're all trying to win. That drive is what got them to the professional level in the first place. Their need, drive to win. When they don't win, that's failure. When you win, that's success. Yes, this season was a failure for the Bucks because the goal was to win a championship. To win another championship. They failed. Sure, there were some things that they can take away from the season as positives. Yes, they did have some success in some games and for stretches of the season, but overall, the season was a failure. Yes, the seasons that Michael Jordan did not win a championship, yes, those seasons were failures. If they were successes, Michael Jordan would have had more championships, right? Right? Like, is my logic not, is my math not mathing? Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. We need to stop asking these questions of these pro athletes and just have conversation with them about just what's going on. Like, it were the last 9 seasons, was this season a failure? Why are you asking him that? Why is that question the first thing? Why is that even a question in your mind? Stop asking stupid questions. Yes, the season is a failure. They did not win. He's not going to call himself a failure. Come on, people. You're supposed to be journalists. You're supposed to be asking real questions. Instead of asking why the season if the season was a failure, why not ask what didn't go right this season? What could y'all have done better this season? What games do you think y'all could have played better? Where do you think y'all could improve? I don't know, man. I don't know. I just think it's dumb. And then his answer was a little stupid. You know what I'm saying? Like, the question was stupid. His answer was even stupider because you can't say that there's no success in sports. There's no failure in sports, but there's also success. You can't have success without failure. If there was no failure, how would you know what success looked like? Oh man, I tell you, there's a lot of stuff going on in the sports world. It's so hard to find stuff to talk about. I mean, to find just a few things to talk about. It's so much. And then you sit there and you wonder, like, oh, what should I talk about this time? What are people going to be interested in? What are people going to want to talk about? What are people going to want to talk about? All right, so my last topic, I was debating on whether or not I wanted to talk about this, but I'm just going to go for it. I'm just going to go for it because it's out there. And I think we need to talk about it. I've talked about it before. The transgender cyclist Austin Killips wins women race, causes outrage. I've publicly said that I believe that banning transgenders from sports is a bad idea. I've publicly said that it is not the way to go. But I've also said that there needs to be co-ed sports. There needs to be a league where everybody who signs up for it knows that they could be competing against a man, they could be competing against a woman, they could be competing against a non-binary person, they could be competing against whoever fucking shows up, and they need to be okay with that. Because that's the league. And that's where transgender people should compete. The funny thing is that people want to say that transgenders aren't going to affect sports. But here's my problem. You can't say that testosterone is a performance enhancing drug and ban it, but then turn around and say that a man who went through full on puberty has been subjected to all that has had all that hormone naturally produced in their body grow to sizes and strengths and have muscle mass that they wouldn't have normally had if they were a woman. Conversely, you have transgender men doing the same shit. They're like, oh, I'm all man. It's like, no, you're not. The only reason you are presenting as man is because you have dosed yourself with high levels of human growth hormones in order to grow your mustache and your beard and your muscle definition and shit like that. So, that being the case, how are you all man? And how does that play into competing against other men who don't dope? There are pro athletes out there who have gotten in trouble with the drug testing commission simply because they were using fertility drugs because they were trying to get pregnant with their wives. Barry Bonds, Mark McGwire, Jose Canseco, all of these guys, they're all besmirched because they got caught up in a steroid scandal. So how are you going to tell me that it's okay for a trans man to compete in sports when they are doping? By technical terms, they are doping. Where do we draw the line? Where do we draw the cutoff? Leah Thomas was 6 foot something. Women do not grow to that height regularly. That is not a normal height for women. No, I'm not saying that women don't get that tall. What I'm saying is that the average height of the WNBA is fucking 5'11". That means that on average, the tallest women who play basketball are 5'11", are around 5'11". That's not to say that there aren't women who are 6 foot and all that kind of shit, but the WNBA's tallest player is Brittany Griner at 6'7". And I saw the video of the girl who competed against Leah Thomas. She's fucking in tears about this. And yet people are like, shut the fuck up. You're being discriminatory. How come nobody's listening to her? How come nobody's taking her feelings into consideration when we talk about this? This is why I believe they need to make co-ed leagues. It would not be hard for them to say, this is a co-ed bike race. You will be competing against everybody. I don't think it's unfair to say that men that men who are born men should only be able to compete in men's sports, and women who are born women should only be able to compete in women's sports. I don't think that's discriminatory. I do not think that is unfair. I've talked about it. In every statistic that is measured in sports, men hold the edge. The only place where women hold an edge is endurance, because women's bodies are designed to carry two lives. Women's bodies are biologically capable of sustaining a whole nother life. And that is why their bodies produce energy more efficiently than men. But that is the only measurable stat where women hold the edge. Men are faster, they are stronger, they are taller. These are all things required in sports. They're all necessities in sports. There aren't many sports where height does not play a factor, strength does not play a factor, speed does not play a factor. So when you tell me Leah Thomas, who transitioned all of a sudden, it wasn't even like she was this her whole life. It was she got into college, she was a male swimmer, irrelevant. Then all of a sudden now she's the number one female swimmer in America. Do you not see how that's not right? I understand why people are outraged. I do. For all intents and purposes, Leah Thomas competing in women's sports is like somebody giving their kid or their young child testosterone or steroids all the way up to the point where they can get tested, all the way up until the point where they start getting tested for performance enhancing drugs. Because you can do that. You can do that. It might be unethical, it might be frowned upon, it might be immoral, whatever, but you can get your doses of steroids like all the way up to, because when I was in high school, they weren't drug testing us. They weren't testing us for performance enhancing drugs. It's not until you start getting to the college level that they start testing you for performance enhancing drugs. So imagine somebody's been doping a woman has been doping her entire life. As soon as she gets to college, she stops. Just because she stopped taking the steroids does not mean the muscle mass that she's accumulated, the muscle growth that she has, is going to just magically dissolve a fucking way. As long as she keeps up a workout routine and keeps maintaining that body weight and that muscle mass, she is going to be strong as shit, and she's going to have an edge over the other women. And the same goes for men. If a man was doping all the way up until college, building all this muscle and stuff like that, he stops when he gets to college, guess what? Now, I might be wrong. They might be dope. They might be drug testing these kids in high school. I don't know. They might be. Some schools might have it in there. Some school districts might be drug testing them. I don't fucking know. All I know is that when you get to the college level, there are definite drug tests there. They are definitely checking for performance enhancing drugs. And again, I'm not saying that we should not be accommodating to transgenders in sports, because they are human in sports. They are human beings too. All I'm saying is that there needs to be a co-ed league where gender does not matter. Because in men's sports and women's sports, that's why we separated them out. Because if we had full men's teams competing against full women's teams, women would get shit on 90% of the time. And that is a fact. I don't care what you do. You can sit here and argue based on your feelings. Go out there, do the research, do the data, look at the statistics. Every measurable sports statistic. Fastest sprint times, strongest lift time, fastest weight, the most weight lifted, all of it. Men dominate those records. And here's my final thought on that. Florence Henderson. Was it Florence Henderson or Florence Joe? Flojo, whoever the woman that was that broke the women's record for the 100 in 1988. That record has not been broken since then. 1988 until now. I am 35 years old. 1988 now. No woman has broken that record to my knowledge. None. Zero. But conversely, you look at the men's fastest sprint time, Usain Bolt broke that shit at least 2 or 3 times his damn self in the modern era of sports. I believe as recently as fucking 20, it definitely in the 2000s, he broke it at least twice. Justin Gatlin came close. There are plenty of people who come close to breaking that record and doing all this stuff. And the times aren't even fucking close. If you were to see the fastest male sprinter go up against the fastest female sprinter, it would not be close. You would literally be waiting for her. You would literally be waiting for a second or two after he finished for her to finish. Here's another one. Venus and Serena Williams issued a challenge to professional tennis players around the world. The only catch was that these men had to be outside the top 200. In comes Mr. 203. He accepts the challenge, plays both sisters, and beats them both easily. There is a video of one of the Williams sisters saying they like playing against women more than they like playing against men because men are faster, they're stronger, blah, 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 blah. Again, not saying that transgenders should not be allowed to play sports. I think it is far past time for us to bring in some sports leagues that are co-ed. Because that's the only true way that you'll have it to where gender does not affect the game. And whatever somebody's got going on does not affect the game. It does not affect whatever competition, whatever it is. Whatever it is. And if you hate me for saying this shit, I'm sorry your feelings were hurt by cold hard facts. I'm sorry. But I believe in fairness in sports. I believe in fairness in competition. And if we're going to make the firm decision that doping and taking performance-enhancing drugs is illegal in sports and it is banned, it is prohibited, and it will cause you to be removed from the sport, banned from the sport, then we need to keep that across the board. I understand that a transgender man and a transgender woman need their hormones and this, that, and the third, and this, that, and the third. And I understand what that means. But at the end of the day, doping is still doping. If you have to take testosterone to grow muscle that you wouldn't have normally grown, to have a mustache that you wouldn't have normally had, you are doping. And that goes against the competition, the spirit of fair competition in sports. I don't care what you tell me. Because if you didn't take that testosterone, you wasn't taking all them hormones and shit like that, you would not be competing at the level you are if you are competing against men. You're not. You wouldn't. Conversely, if you're going to tell women that they can't shoot up performance-enhancing drugs, you shouldn't be allowed to say that a transgender person who transitioned within the last year of their life, gone through a full male puberty and everything, can can just flip over to women's sports and play. I understand that people don't want their feelings hurt, but look, we have to treat people with fairness. And just because somebody feels like they feel like something is unfair because it hurts their feelings, it doesn't mean it's unfair. It just means that their feelings are hurt. We need to protect the sanctity of competition and sports. I don't give a fuck about women's sports. I don't give a fuck about men's sports. I care about the level playing field in general. That's why we competed in sports. That's why we played sports. That's why we fucking enjoy sports, because we all got out there and we have a level playing field to compete and a fair chance to win. All right. I am done for this episode. Thanks for tuning in. I know this is just a little bit longer than I normally did, but that last little article, I really wanted to make sure that people understand that I'm not trying to be transphobic. I'm trying to be inclusive and fair. Okay? I saw the video of that girl crying. I did. It made her uncomfortable, A, that she had to be in a locker room with somebody with male genitalia. She was forced. She was forced to be in that scenario. Because she did speak. She's speaking up now, and she's made that video speaking up now, and people give zero fucks about her feeling and how it made her feel to be in that scenario. They care more about making sure Leah Thomas is accepted by society than making sure that the woman in that scenario is heard, her feelings are validated, and they come to some fair agreement. All right, I'm done. I'm out. Catch me next time. Peace.